Hi everyone. My name is Sarah Cannon, and this is my new book, Twist. And just to tell you a little bit more about myself, I'm an author from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've got 3 kids, a dog, 2 cats, and 7 chickens. And I live right across the street from a park, which makes me very happy, especially in spring. But today, what I wanted to talk to you about is a couple of the different reasons why where and when you set your book becomes so incredibly important to what happens in your book. So, to give you a very obvious example, Twist is set in 1983, which is when I was a middle grader, um, but most of my readers weren't born yet. And so, first of all, I have to be pretty careful to explain things, even if it's only in a few words that might not otherwise be obvious to the readers, just as somebody who was, in a completely different setting that wasn't the normal everyday world as we know it might have to do. One example of this is telephones. Back in 1983, almost nobody had a cell phone yet. And even if you had a home phone, it wasn't always a cordless phone. A lot of times it was attached to your wall, and the receiver was connected to the base by this long curly cord. And if you were lucky, your parents bought an extra long one, an add on, so that you could get further away from everybody else when you were on the phone and they couldn't all listen to your phone calls. But that becomes very important at one point in Twist because one of my characters is trying to sneak past her parents and get away with something. And she can tell that her mom is planning to stay on the phone because she's bothering to untangle this long curly cord so that she can go have a conversation. So that's one example of a reason why time and place were important in this book. And actually, to give you another phone example, there's a point where I have a character who is aware that there are monsters nearby and that it's really much safer to stay in the house. But when she tries to call and warn her friends, call waiting hadn't really been invented yet in 1983. And again, if you don't know what that is, you don't even have to think about it now. If someone else calls you when you're on your cell phone, you get a notification that you're receiving a second call, right? I always do. And then I can say, yes, I'd like to take this call, or no, I'm going to decline it right now. But back then, you would just get a busy signal that went re, and that forces her out of the house in my book. I'm actually able to be that dastardly author who makes her go out and confront the monsters because she can't warn her friends if she stays in the house. Now, this isn't something that's specific just to my book. If you love reading high fantasy like The Dragon with a Chocolate Heart or Rise of the Dragon King or any other high fantasy novel, there are a lot of things that people have to really think hard about. For example, until the 1600s, having pockets sewn into your clothes wasn't really a thing. And even when it started, it was really only a thing in men's clothes. So if you're writing about someone putting something in their pocket, you're probably talking about like a little pouch or a bag that's underneath a person's clothing, and maybe there's a little slit in their clothing so that they can reach in and access it, but it's not a pocket the way we would think of a pocket today. You also have to think really carefully when your characters sit down to eat because in all likelihood, they don't have worldwide trade. And even if they did, they wouldn't have the refrigeration ability to actually preserve food long enough to get it from point A to point B so a person could eat it. So you really have to know what's reasonable. And even if you're creating completely made up foods, if they're a fruit, you have to think about whether they have a thick rind or a peel that might make them last longer if they were being taken from one place to another, or if there's something that's going to start to get moldy within a few days. So I hope that this gives you something to think about as you noodle over your own writing. And I'm also going to include in the comments down below a link to a Twist online scavenger hunt. So this scavenger hunt is going to ask you a lot of different questions about things that were around in 1983 when this book is set. And if you answer all of the questions and you send it back to me at my email, which is hellosarahcannon@gmail.com, then I've got a signed copy of Twist that I'm going to do a drawing for, and I'll send out some book swag. And that way we can all kind of have something fun to occupy ourselves while we're hanging out at home. At any rate, thanks for being here with me today, and I hope you have a great one.